special Sunday edition. We were going to do this webinar later in the week, but felt because of the big event, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday now, of Sinwar's killing, that we wanted to be able to tap into this enormous expertise of our Israeli colleagues as soon as possible. And we thought our audience could benefit from that. So we've moved it up to this special Sunday session. I'm John Hanna. I'm the Randi and Charles Wax Senior Fellow here at JINSA. I'm very pleased to be joined by my colleagues, Major General Yaacov Ayish first, our Julian and Jenny Josephson, Senior Vice President for Israeli Affairs, previously headed the IDF's Operations Directorate and served as Israel's Defense Attaché in Washington, and Major General Yaakov Amidror, a distinguished fellow at JINSA's Gemunder Center, who has served in just a number of extremely important positions in the IDF, but in his most recent position served as the National Security Advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu in one of his earlier terms. Listen, the title of this session is Sinwar is Dead and What Comes Next. I obviously want to cover that as much as we can. Audience, if you've got questions, particularly on Sinwar's death that you need urgently answered, please submit them in the Q&A function. I do, if time permits, I want to get to some of the other big developments. Obviously, what's happening in northern Gaza in terms of Israel's operations, what's happening in the north, this attack, drone attack, apparently on the prime minister's residence in Caesarea. And of course, we're all waiting on pins and needles for what might happen vis-a-vis any kind of Israeli retaliation against Iran. We'll see how much of that we can get to. But let me start with this Israeli operation last week. General Ayish, the killing of Sinwar. There's been a fair amount written about it now in the U.S. press about how it happened, but why don't you go ahead and give us whatever you can, the thumbnail sketch of exactly what happened and how this all came about last week?
Well, just to summarize it, it will be very simple. It's a regular patrol based on an infantry battalion reinforced with a tank company of tanks. Both of them, by the way, are trainees who were pulled out of the training period to conduct a series of operations in Gaza. And their mission was to conduct a patrol at the area west to Rafah, called Tel Sultan. It's quite a big neighborhood. If you would compare it to Rafah refugee camp and Shabura and the others, it is kind of a modern neighborhood, well built, that was fully booby-trapped just before the IDF entered that area. And they knew that they have to clear it up above ground and under the ground. And it was part of their mission. Bear in mind that they have two permanent missions. One is to do whatever they can in order to rescue the hostages. And I will remind our audience that at the same area, the IDF already have found one hostage that was rescued in one of the tunnels, another 6 that were killed and were found killed in one of the tunnels nearby. And a few months ago, another 3 that were rescued at the area of Rafah. So they had a clue, and more than a clue, I would say, that this is a very interesting area, and part of their mission to patrol it, they have identified a squad of 3, which at the end found that one of them was the Sinwar, secured by 2 guards that were usually paving his way out from one place to the other. Now, let me explain something sensitive here. Usually they are under the ground. What the IDF does when they found the underground system, they use all type of techniques in order to push them out of the tunnels, and they have to jump from one to the other. Allegedly, that's what have happened over there. And then they split into two houses. The two that ran into one of the apartments were killed later on, and one was injured. The one that was injured was Sinwar, and the squad and the platoon commander simply found blood stains at the entrance to that building. What led to the whole operation around that building to make sure that it is cleared. And then he used one of the drones in order to find what is inside. And I'm sure that everyone saw that video, how the drone, a small type of drone, is maneuvering inside of the apartment. And he identified Sinwar without knowing that it's Sinwar. They simply identified a terrorist with a vest and some of the equipment on him. He was already injured from the soldiers and the UAV. And in a certain stage, they decided to use the tank support, and by that, they killed him. And only when they went up the morning after to clear that secure apartment, they have identified the fact that it's Sinwar. Simply took a picture, send it back, and then the intelligence and all the other relevant agencies have identified him as Muhammad Sinwar. They wrapped him, put him on a stretcher, as it should be done, and took him back to Israel.
Yeah, no, the taking him out on a stretcher and the degree to which the IDF soldiers, I think, demonstrated a degree of restraint and respect for the body of the dead is such a contrast with some of those images we saw on October 7th and the defiling of the bodies of innocent civilians. But I should just also note that we all heard that they not only took the picture, they took a finger from him as well for the process of identification. General, just in terms of what was the cause of death, he obviously had a massive head injury, and I heard different reports. Was that done by a soldier, a bullet from the firefight, or was it done by the tank round that crashed the building?
Three elements. The major one that caused the death was the tank rounds, but before that, he was injured severely from UAV bomb and from the soldiers, but he was not killed by that. He was injured in his hand and some other severely, but not yet dead. The last rounds of the tank killed him.
Got it. And in terms of the pocket litter that they got out of him, I saw he had up to 5 passports on him. He might have had thousands of shekels.
40,000 shekels, correctly, passports, and an UNRWA certificate showing that he is an UNRWA worker.
Is there anything we can take from that? You don't think he was planning to flee? What do we think? We think he was trying to go from one part of Rafah to some other tunnel that might take him somewhere else in Gaza?
The place, Tel Sultan, is very close to Philadelphia access. The distance from there to the Philadelphia access and to Egypt is basically nothing. So if you are equipped with 40,000 shekels, which is around $10,000 to $12,000 in cash on you, different type of passports, a fake certificate as an UNRWA worker. And if you want, I can add on it what was found in his safe in one of the tunnels, which is millions. So basically, you can understand that this guy preserved from himself all the options. Basically, he could have done whatever he wanted unless he was found. but he was very close to the border. The option was there. I don't know for sure if it was something that he planned to do. The option was there.
Got it. And just in terms of how he died, I mean, we have on the one hand, we had Saddam Hussein cowering in his spider hole, begging for people not to shoot him. How would you say, did Sinwar die putting up a fight, would you say? Because there has been something in the Arab press, let's say, the propaganda trying to suggest, oh my gosh, he went down like a martyr, fighting, throwing sticks to his last breath.
He was hiding, like it was described many times, and trying to move from one place to the other. He was not fighting. Those who fought for him, those two guards, were killed by that infantry battalion immediately. And when he pulled his head up, he was hit by a sniper, and not killed, but hit by a sniper. He was injured severely. And then the UAV, and then tanks. He didn't really put up with a fight or something like that. You can see him, in that couch, covered, hiding his face, barely can stand, and looking at the drone, and that was it. That was the end of him. It was the end of a year of hiding from one place to the other, from Khan Yunis to the area of Rafah, Tel Sultan, and many others. Moving inside the tunnels, popping out from one tunnel to the other when he was under a lot of pressure. And he was doing it with a very small group. We have to remember that when he was hiding inside the tunnels, he had all the equipment. He had the hostages near him. We know for sure by DNA remnants that were found in the tunnels that they were nearby, and they were his human shield, as we suspected. So basically, that was the situation.
Got it. We've had some reports since his death talking about, obviously Americans were incredibly happy. The administration expressed great happiness with Sinwar's death. We've had some reports about a little more detail on the fusion cells of American special operators and intel people who have created these cells to try and assist, particularly in the killing of high-value Hamas targets, including Sinwar. But so I don't know if you can say anything about how helpful that.
No, we don't leak anything about America.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
I understand. I don't know why you would say that. Did something happen recently? But General Ayish, just on for a lot of us, our minds go back to as long ago as February and March, and the President of the United States saying, do not conduct a major offensive to go into Rafah, to take Rafah, that we can do whatever we need to do through very targeted counterterrorism raids to go after senior leadership, but going into Rafah will be too bloody. Can you say with any degree of certainty that if you had heeded that kind of advice, if you hadn't gone in fairly significantly with a large force to take Rafah and begin clearing it out, encircling neighborhoods, that there's a good probability you might not have found Sinwar this way?
Absolutely. There is a range of reasons why we went into Rafah. And in this platform, week and week again, General Amidror, myself, and General Norkin discussed with you and the rest of the team the reasons why we should be on Philadelphia, why we should eliminate, let me remind the audience, the brigade in Rafah, and the leadership that was hiding there. We didn't mention the fact that the battalion commander of Tel Sultan was killed as well, and many other prominent commanders of Hamas, to include almost all those 4 battalions were eliminated while we were there. We found more than 180 tunnels, and at the end also to eliminate Sinwar and to cut the lines of supply for Hamas from the Sinai Peninsula, Egypt, into Rafah and the Gaza Strip. So all those reasons were strong enough. And if you are adding on it the fact that we wanted to eliminate the military leadership, the masterminds behind October 7th, the reason was very clear why it has to be done. And it was clear to us before, and I'm sure that it is clear now for everyone as well. So basically, there is no doubt about it.
Got it. Good. General Amidror, let me bring you in to kind of zoom out a little higher up in terms of help us understand what is the importance of the death and killing of Sinwar. What are the strategic implications, if any? Obviously, we very quickly had both the president and vice president of the United States come out and say, this is a great opportunity with Sinwar out of the way to get the hostages back and essentially end the war. You were quoted in the Wall Street Journal, I think I read, having a slightly different opinion about what this means for the continuation of Israeli operations in Gaza. But why don't you give us some kind of a framework and context for understanding how important this event is for Israel's war against the Iranian Ring of Fire?
I think that practically on the ground, it is not such an important event. It will not change the need of Israel to continue to fight against Hamas and to diminish its remnants in Gaza. It will not change the time which is needed to do it, but I think that from the point of view of Hamas, to lose the symbol of the organization, to lose the one who led the Hamas to this situation after the barbarian attack in the 7th of October, the one who could get out of the tunnels and make a V in his hands and say, we won, I survived. He cannot make it anymore. I mean, practically, it's not so important, but symbolically and morally, in a moral point of view, it is very important. And how significant it will be during the continuation of the operations inside Gaza, it's too early to judge. I believe that it will have an influence, but it will take time to judge and to see what are the implications. Look, Hamas doesn't have too many assets now. The one is the hostages. This is the only asset which has a value. The other one was the ability of Sinwar to get out and say, I survived, I didn't win. They lost it. Somebody can get out and at the end to say, I survived, but it is not Sinwar, and no one in Gaza is parallel to Sinwar. He, for sure, is the main leader, and after nominated formally to be the leader of Hamas, it's not just the leader of the fighters inside those who fight inside the Gaza Strip. It is also formally the head of the organization. So I think that practically we have to see. I'm not sure that will be a significant result, but symbolically and morally, it's very, very important. And I think it's very important for another issue. It's kind of a signal to the world around us in the Middle East. Guys, look what happened to the leadership of Hezbollah. Look what is happening to the leadership of Hamas. And try to understand what might be if someone in the Arab world, has dreams about fighting Israel. Take it into consideration. And I think that this is different from the old wars during which we didn't talk about elimination. We wanted to win the war, center of gravities, territories, and so on and so forth. Here we are speaking about annihilation of Hamas. Annihilation of Hamas includes the annihilation of the leadership. And the fact that we are succeeding to do it, I think from the all important leadership of Shat is only his brother and 2 brigade commanders. That's all. that is well understood around the Arab world in the Middle East. And so if you ask me if I see tomorrow collapse or of Hamas terrorists that will left their weapon and go away and run away, or so, I don't think it is there. But in the process, it might happen because the leader is not there.
But you're not anticipating anytime soon for the bulk of Hamas's fighters to take up the prime minister's offer to surrender, lay down their arms, deliver the hostages, and have immunity for themselves.
We will see more of them doing that, trying to reunite with their families and to leave the fighting. But the vast majority, I don't see it doing it.
And do you share any of the president or vice president's optimism that they expressed immediately after Sinwar's death, that you can somehow use this event to resurrect a ceasefire negotiation to get the hostages back?
I think that this is an opportunity for America to put pressure on Egypt and Qatar. Will it work inside the strip? Relating to those who will be nominated, the brother of Sinwar and others, I'm very pessimistic, but I must say it's an opportunity someone has to find if it is there.
And what about the pressure inside of Israel? We obviously hear the hostage families and their supporters that say this is the moment, now is the time to go, but we also hear, without it being attributed to specific officials, that Israel's security establishment, people within the active IDF, within the intelligence community, believe this is now the time to try and strike a deal to begin winding down the Gaza war. Is that any of that true or ring true to you?
I think that, sadly, I'm very sad about it, but the whole issue of the hostages became very political in Israel. It is not just about the hostages, it's about Bibi and the hostages, the government and the opposition and the hostages. And this is why it's very hard to judge how far that opportunity will be exploited by the Israeli government. But I think that if America puts something on the table, no government in Israel can exclude it without looking at it and learning what are the opportunities which are there, if will be opportunities.
Very good. Somebody's asking us, if not through a negotiation, what more can be done, or what will be the strategy to rescue the remaining hostages? And then there's also a question that somebody, the head of SodaStream, is now offering $100,000 for each hostage that is surrendered. Do you hold out any hope for this?
Again, there is no price to all these efforts. And the same is about the declaration of the Prime Minister that he is offering immunity to those who will bring hostage or information about hostages. There is no price for all these efforts, and they should be done. From my point of view, I think that the military pressure to continue is more important than all the other issues. Those who are holding the hostages should feel that the IDF is on their tail, that if they will not give them up, they will suffer. And for that, we have to continue the military pressure. Will it help the offering of the $100,000 or the immunity? Or I don't know. But the combination between all these offers and the continuation of the military pressure, I think, might bring some people to the situation in which they'll say, okay, let's take the chance, I'll take the immunity, I'll take the money, and I leave.
Yeah.
That might happen, but the combination in Gaza today is such that it is very hard to see how it works.
And I think your point about increased pressure on the main mediators with Hamas, Egypt and Qatar in particular, might also be in.
That should be done, no question.
Yeah.
And without Sinwar in the middle, it might help.
Yeah. General Ayish, before I move on to ask you to explain what you understand are the broader operations happening right now in Gaza, particularly in northern Gaza, can I just ask you, what does Israel do with a body of a high-value target like Sinwar in a case like this?
Okay, in case of terrorists, Israel is treating the body in a very respected way, and there are two options. If Israel is going to hold it for a long time, there is special area, without going into too much details, that we bury them in a very dignified way, and are protected for a day where we had an exchange or something like that. That's how we deal with the bodies. I don't want to go to all the plastic details. As someone who dealt with it in 2004 when we did the exchange with the Hezbollah, it's very important how you deal with it. There is another option if it is temporary, to hold it, in a special facilities that we have with all the cooling systems, etc. I'm not sure with this case. There is already an ongoing discussion over here in Israel how we should deal with the mastermind of the atrocities that have happened in October 7th. Someone who is responsible for the killing of so many Israeli civilians, rape and all the other stuff that they have done in October 7th. And I'm sure that at the end of the government will decide. Right now, they are holding it at the temporary location, and they will take it from there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's zoom out a little bit to Israel's broader operations in Gaza. Of course, one of the things that happened this week that was kind of superseded by the Sinwar death was this, I don't know, it was a surprise to some of us, the letter from Secretaries of Defense Austin and Secretary of State Blinken that got leaked publicly earlier in the week, and basically issuing a stark warning about America's concerns about deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza, a sense that Israel wasn't doing all it could do, all it had promised to do, and saying within 30 days, Israel really needs to fulfill a series of very specific demands by the United States on the humanitarian issue, with the implication that Israel could face further constraints on the American supply of weapons. So I wonder if you can, first explain to us what is happening in northern Gaza. It doesn't look like targeted, intelligence-driven counterterrorism raids in and out. It looks like big operations in places where Israel has been once, twice, three times before. And yet now there seem to be significant formations of Hamas reconstituting there, and IDF soldiers losing their lives. And how big of an operation is happening there, and what's the purpose?
So the IDF have moved to what we call the C phase. The C phase is basically something very similar to what we are doing on a daily basis in Judea and Samaria in order to sustain security in a certain given area. We have to remember that in the case of Hamas, we wanted to dismantle Hamas, and for that we went after his military organizations, after his military leadership, political leadership, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. But then what was left of Hamas battalions and the brigade transformed into guerrilla way of fighting, and this is the small squads that the IDF is fighting every now and then. The other element that was very important they were using the civilian population as a human shield, and they were totally embedded into the population, to including the Mawasi area. And when this population was back to the northern part of the Gaza Strip, they went with them. So you can find at the northern part of the Gaza Strip today, few hundred, there are assumptions about a few thousand terrorists hiding among the population. What was offered, and let me take this opportunity to invite our audience to join us tomorrow to a webinar with General Island, who came with that plan, who came with that idea, who presented it over here in Israel. He's going to discuss it on a JINSA webinar tomorrow evening in much more details. But basically, what the IDF was doing is not that plan. What the IDF was doing is moving them, civilian population, from the northern part via corridors in a secure way into the humanitarian humanitarian zone. And the IDF told those Palestinians in that area that those who are going to stay behind are risking their lives, because the IDF is going to enter to clear up that area to make sure that there are no terrorists, no infrastructure, and no munitions, and so on and so forth in that area. And obviously, terrorists that were hiding among this population is shooting and deploying IEDs, and it's not an area that is totally clean. There is nothing that you can define as totally clean. Even if you are gaining control above ground and under the ground, they can, either infiltrate into their area and try to surprise you. This is the nature of guerrilla warfare, as we can see it, by the way, in Judea and Samaria. Obviously, the level of escalation, the level of violence is not the same as it was when we started the operation. Today, in order to act in those areas, you need few battalions, and you can operate in that area and clear it up and open it and secure it. The key factor that we didn't discuss yet is the humanitarian support. And the idea was that once the innocent civilians have moved into the humanitarian zone, you can provide them over there with all the humanitarian support. And by that, to make sure that you are not providing food and fuel and all type of humanitarian support to terrorists who are hiding at the northern part. The idea was to divide between those two groups. I'm afraid that the letter that came in a very sensitive timing for all sorts of reasons, from political reasons up to other strategic reasons, were very challenging. So what we have seen in the last 3 days is convoys of humanitarian support going into the Mawasi and to the northern part of Gaza, providing the Palestinians with all the humanitarian support needed. But basically, the pressure, the American, I don't want to use the word threat, on Israel, on the IDF in terms of munition and so on, in such a sensitive period after 12 months of fighting in 7 different fronts, was something very challenging.
I agree entirely. And whoever did leak it, I mean, I suspect it was obviously a planned leak at the very top of the administration. So nobody's going to get fired or blamed for it, but completely unhelpful as far as I can tell. General Amidror, let me go to you just on this question of the humanitarian aid. Obviously, there's been a lot of chatter. I think it's part of General Island's plan. The Prime Minister said it at the United Nations. He said, listen, we're destroying the military formations. They maintain ability right now to continue to dominate the population at some level. And it's because in part, at least, significant part, they continue to control the distribution channels for a bulk of the humanitarian aid, or they steal it and sell it at exorbitant prices, or pay people off with it, recruit new people, and that Israel needs to stop this. And we're developing a plan to stop it. And I'm wondering, I know you've been leery about the IDF taking over responsibility for any part of the new civilian administration of Gaza, probably even on a temporary basis, terribly expensive, dangerous, all kinds of things. But what's your understanding of this issue of the humanitarian aid delivery and how important it is to Hamas's center of gravity on political control still? You're muted, General.
I think it's very important, not because it's a center of gravity relating to political control. They control not because of the food. They control because of the guns. They have enough guns and enough ability to kill anyone who might try to take their place. And even if tomorrow the IDF will control the whole chain and will bring the food into the Palestinians in some area from which it will be spread within themselves. If Hamas is strong enough to kill the people in Gaza, Hamas will control Gaza. The claim that it is because of the humanitarian food which controlled by Hamas, I think it's a huge mistake. It's not about the food, it's about the guns. And we will have to continue to fight them and to kill them and not let them to reorganize. And this is the only way to prevent them from controlling the Gaza Strip in the future. If they control the food, that will not make them those who are controlling Gaza. Here there will be competition. Others will come. Others will bring the food. Others will bring it to the population. The fact that they are the strongest force within the Palestinian society, which still holds the guns that can kill the others, is more important than the control of the food. And the only way to change the equation is to kill more of them. If more will be recruited, we will have to kill.
And you believe General Amidror, because to an American audience, they'll say, Amidror wants to kill just about everybody. If he thinks there are guns that are going to kill Palestinians, he's talking about killing every last Hamas cell that can intimidate a new Palestinian from rising up. And that's just an impossible task. That is a formula for Israel being endlessly bogged down in Gaza and unable to really focus its full attention elsewhere. That if it's not trying to build some alternative that puts the weight on somebody else, the IDF's going to be going in and out of northern Gaza from here until 2030 or 2035.
Many years ago, Dennis Ross told me that they had a mistake. They thought that having an agreement with the Palestinians will stop the incitement. What they learned is the incitement is not letting to have any agreement. Here is the same. It's not that the fact that they are controlling the humanitarian aid gives them the ability to kill the Palestinians. The fact that they can kill the Palestinians, and Israelis, by the way, gives them the ability to control the humanitarian help. If they will not have the ability to kill the people around them and to kill Israelis, the humanitarian aid will get to the Palestinians without them. If they have the ability to kill those who are against them or those who try to be substitute to the Hamas system, they will control the humanitarian aid because no one will be in a position to fight against them. So if we want to achieve something that will be a substitute to Hamas, is only by eroding the capabilities of Hamas and degrade to the level in which they are not a threat to those who try to build a substitute system. It's not that the substitute system will stop them from using the weapon. It's the weapon who is stopping all the others from building the substitute system. This is the big mistake of those who preached us in the past. You have an agreement, it will stop the incitement. No, the incitement is stopping the ability to achieve the agreement. Here is exactly the same. It's the weapon which is making the difference, not the humanitarian help.
But you're maintaining that Israel's national interest is to continue this war, not only up to the point where Israelis are safe now from Hamas's guns, but where Palestinians are safe as well. And a new Palestinian government, whatever that will be, is going to be safe from Hamas's guns as well. That's Israel's military mission.
At the end, we don't have any other way, because what we want is someone third party. From my point of view, Amidror point of view, it can be the Palestinian Authority. There are many Israelis who don't like the idea that it will be the Palestinian Authority. They are looking for foreigners to come, I don't know, from the Gulf, from America, whatever. But do you see a third party ready to enter to Gaza tomorrow to fight Hamas? Or not tomorrow, 6 months from now, to fight Hamas in Gaza? I don't know about any such third party. If we want to find this third party, we have to guarantee a situation in which the third party does not have to fight the Hamas remnants in Gaza. For that, you have to degrade the ability of Hamas to fight them. There is no any other way to do it. People are saying, no, Israel should do something to control the humanitarian aid, and okay, we are controlling it. And then after 6 months, someone will enter. What do you find? Hamas to fight.
Okay. Anyway,
Well,
it's a ongoing conversation. What exactly Israel's how to make Israel safe from Gaza versus whether or not our ambition should be to make the Palestinian and a new Palestinian government safe. But we can. I want to move.
I didn't say
No,
Palestinian. By
just-
the way, I don't care if it be Palestinian or a third party coming from the Gulf or American company. I don't care. What's
Right.
important for us is the military control of the Gaza Strip, not to let Hamas to rebuild its military capability. For the people of Gaza, for preventing a chaos in the future, for having someone who will take care for the civilians and rebuild Gaza maybe in the long future, we need to degrade the capabilities of Hamas to stop any such third party from entering to the Gaza Strip.
Right. And the IDF is probably the only force that can do that for sure. General Ayish, do you want to comment on this? Because I
Yes.
do want to move on to the northern front and
A quick comment about it, and I think in the past we discussed it already. It's about the issue of alternative administration inside the Gaza, and I've used already in the past the example of what have happened in 2004 and 2005 in Judea and Samaria. What was called Fauda, totally disorder. After we dismantled their terror capabilities totally, we didn't eliminate until the last terrorist. However, the Dayton battalions were built in order to provide type of internal security and order inside the Judea and Samaria, to some level. But in the case of Gaza, if you look at Gaza as a bulk and you want to either eliminate the last terrorist and only then to offer an alternative, obviously it will be very difficult, and I would say it will take years. However, if you are taking it in slices, and that's why I think that the discussion with General Island tomorrow and the offer, John, that you and the rest of the team put right after February is highly relevant here. If you are taking it in slices and you are creating a new order and a new local administration with the humanitarian support, with obviously an area which is free of Hamas terrorists, and you start at the north and you are moving to the center and then to the south, while at the same time you secure the border to make sure that Hamas doesn't have the ability to rebuild itself, to regroup, and to re-equip its unit. Then you have a very positive, I would say, momentum or transformation that can lead you to a different situation. And with external players that can come in and join that effort, I think there is a better probability to achieve what we want, i.e., an area without Hamas military capabilities on one hand, and let the Palestinians to manage themselves.
Yeah, our friend Dan Diker asked a question about does anybody believe the PA will come in and fight Hamas instead of the IDF? They can't fight Hamas in the West Bank. I think the answer to that is we're all agreed. No, the PA is not going to come in anytime soon and fight Hamas in a place where they were so unceremoniously evicted and quite easily evicted in 2007. General Ayish, I want to move on to the situation in the north, talk about that a little bit. What is going on in the north? How deep is the Israeli ground invasion right now? What are you finding? And what's the mission? Obviously, to get people back into their homes, but has the mission now expanded beyond, I don't know, the implementation de facto of 1701? Is there something more going on here? Or is there a degree of mission creep, I guess, that's happening?
The mission given to the IDF by the Israeli government was very clear: to restore security, to allow the citizens of the north back to their villages. And for that, it's not only about being able to move back to the village and to rebuild what was damaged. It's really to create security conditions inside the close vicinity, few miles into Lebanon. And I'm saying few miles because it differs from one sector to the other when you are looking at the topography in Lebanon. It led the IDF to a limited operation, which is really to eliminate Hezbollah's capabilities to storm those villages and to use direct fire and to surprise us and the villages by something similar to what we have seen in October 7th. And for that, the IDF went invaded the southern part of Lebanon into those positions, depots, shelters, tunnels that Hezbollah built in the last, I would say, 18, 20 last years. And for that, they are clearing the area above, and most of them capabilities that were built under the ground. And here I have to emphasize, when I'm saying under the ground, it's not the tunnels that are crossing into the area of the Israeli area. This is something that we did already in the year 2020. I'm talking about tunnels that use as depots, as shelters, as HQs for Hezbollah, as storming positions that will allow them to infiltrate to those areas, put the gear on themselves, and surprise the villages and surprise the IDF by a comprehensive attack on the northern part of the Galilee. So practically speaking, today the situation is that we are controlling most of those positions. It takes time because you have to clear up under the ground. And for that, you have not only to map the tunnels and the shelters, but also to take out all the munitions, the anti-tank capabilities, the IEDs, the machine guns, and all the gear that they have. They're at one unit, which is something like 3,000, 4,000 commando terrorists that were about to storm the villages. And what they are clearing right now in the different villages, which are, we call them villages, but practically speaking, we are talking about military compounds, mostly under the ground. And above grounds, they had all the observation positions, the anti-tank positions, the rockets that should have give them the fire support, the mortars position, etc., etc. So basically, we have good control on all those areas. And once we will finish to clear them up, we'll be able to allow our citizens to be back to their villages. And to my personal assessment, we are not far from there. It's a matter of weeks that we'll be able to finish that and to call them back to the villages. While we were doing that, we had to degrade significantly Hezbollah's capabilities, other capabilities. And I'm talking here about rockets and missiles and precise guided munitions and UAVs and all type of shore-to-sea missiles and so on that the IDF dealt with, to include their tactical, operational, and strategic leadership. And the same system that failed significantly, heavily, in October 7th, in identifying the intent of Hamas, the same system, the same officers and NCOs led to a very impressive success, not only in the south, but also in the north, in eliminating this infrastructure and this leadership, to include the Nasrallah and its general staff, let's call it, Akil and all the others. And those who considered themselves as his successors were eliminated after that. There's still a lot to do. Today, the IDF published that they are going on the financial institutions of Hezbollah in order to cut the lines of supply and oxygen for that organization. And they are doing it on the ground, on the border between Syria and Lebanon. And they are doing it also in Beirut, in the Dahia, in order to limit its ability to regroup and to rebuild itself.
General, is there a number, that a percentage of the projectile arsenal, rockets, missiles, precision project that Israel is publicly, what's the number, a percentage that people are putting out of degradation?
In a second, I'll say the number, but what we are teaching, which is most important, what was left. And General Amidror will say it better than me. What is really important is the capabilities that were left with the Hezbollah that might harm the Israeli population over here. We are talking here today about more than 65% of its capabilities. And I'm talking about overall capabilities. But again, what is really important is the fact that they had so many, that they can still launch. And on a daily basis, they are launching mainly medium range rockets and missiles, but not only, and some UAVs. We are talking about 100, 150. There are days that they are launching around 200 and few UAVs. We tend to speak on Hezbollah from Lebanon, but we have to remember that at the same time we are facing UAVs and ballistic missiles coming from the Houthis in Yemen, to include tonight, and from the Shia militia in Iraq. And some of them UAVs and rockets are coming from the Syrian border. And that's why we are literally facing 7 different fronts and dealing with all of them at the same time.
Yeah, General Amidror, let me get your thoughts on Lebanon. 2 specific questions I have, if you can answer, and then expand on your answer. One is, when Israel finishes cleaning up in southern Lebanon, do you think that Israel will try and maintain, like it has in Gaza, some kind of internal perimeter inside the border in Lebanon that will remain a kind of no-go zone for any Lebanese? And then second, are you seeing, we've had some reports that maybe Hezbollah, the rate of fire, the targeting, they've threatened to do more against Israel to escalate, that they're getting they're reconstituting some of their command and control. Do you see any of that?
What we see is that, the organization was 10 times stronger than Hamas. What happened is that people didn't understand, and I thought those who took part in our webinars in the past, we said it more than once. We prepared ourselves for war in Lebanon for 25 years. And if they were stronger 10 times than Hamas, we were 20 times better prepared for war against Hezbollah than against the Hamas. And you see the difference. But now we are very, very modest in our goals, because the whole idea was to begin the war with Hezbollah and then to move to Hamas. And what happened in the 7th of October, it's vice versa. We fought again a whole year against Hamas, and now we have to move to Hezbollah. The success to eliminate, I don't know the exact number, that huge part of its medium, long range missiles capability is very significant. It's very, very significant. We spoke about 3,000 missiles a day. You don't see more than 300 in a very bad day for Israel. What we don't have a good answer to is the drones, which from time to time succeed to infiltrate into Israel. You saw what happened in the Golani Brigade Center of training, and the Prime Minister residence in Caesarea. It's not big numbers. Here the numbers are very, very modest, but the ability to infiltrate and to reach exact and very accurate point, this is here the problem, not the numbers. Slowly we will advance our ability to identify. The problem is they are flying very, very low, and the radars have the clutter of the universe, and it's of the land, and it's impossible to identify. This is a problem. To identify, then to thwart them is something that we know how to do. I think that we will see continuation of the efforts of Hezbollah. The system of Hezbollah is not so, they spread the ability to decide upon launching missiles and rockets to the local commanders. So the fact that they cannot organize it from above and they cannot coordinate with each other because the lack of the command and control system, which most of the leaders had been killed by us, bring to a situation in which they are launching into Israel rockets and missiles, but not well organized and not in big numbers. And this is something that we know how to deal with it. They don't succeed to make any real harm inside Israel, other than people running to shelters. Morally, it's a problem, but they don't succeed to make any significant damage inside Israel. Unlike the drones, which from time to time succeed to reach a point in which they are making some damages. I think that it will be a long process. And what important more than anything else is to isolate Lebanon. And we begin to do it, not to let anything coming from Syria, to make the Syrians understand that they will pay price because they are hosting Hezbollah and Iranians. And we see the first steps by the Syrians to try to contain the Iranians inside this year, because they understand that they begin to pay a very high price. And the combination of reducing the readiness of Syria to help them, and our ability to stop moving of convoys from Syria into Lebanon by force, by using the air force, this combination together might put huge pressure on Hezbollah, which never had in a situation in which they didn't got what they needed from the Iranians through Syria or other means. Should we bomb the airport? I think it's too early. You know my philosophy that we should not attack the Lebanese governmental facilities. We can stop any attempt by the Iranians to land in Beirut. In the past, they used as substitute airstrips in airports in military airports in Syria, in which there are Russians, and they knew that because of the Russians we will not bomb it. but then they have to transfer it to Lebanon. Otherwise, it doesn't help. That should be stopped, and we will have to be very accurate in our efforts, not to let any real important force to go from north to the south, because now it is slowly we are evacuating the whole south. And in parallel to that, to stop any attempt by the Syrians or the Iranians to move materials from Syria into Lebanon.
Just on the question of the buffer zone inside of Lebanon, do you think Israel is
I think
aiming
that,
for that?
I don't know if it will be announced formally, but practically that's what will happen.
Okay.
Look, this is the big difference from the time that I was the Northern Command intelligence officer. Then we had obligation towards the people of the South. There was the South Lebanese army. We had kind of obligation to the population to let them to continue their life, and it was open roads to the north and back to the south. Every Lebanese could move to the south, to the north, and back to the south. And that served very well Hezbollah purposes. Now we don't have this obligation towards the population, and many of them move to the north. And probably after it will take a long time to let them to come back, because this is part of the situation which was exploited by Hezbollah. Members of Hezbollah pretend to live in the south, and they were in the south, but part of Radwan readiness. And if we succeed to prevent any movements of people, I'm not speaking about old people, women, children. I'm speaking about men at the age of relevant age. If those people will not go back to the south, it will be a huge blow to the whole Hezbollah idea that they can build in the south whatever they want under the coverage that these are Shiites villages, and that are part of the families, blah, 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 blah. If that cannot be done, Hezbollah will be in a huge problem, and a very important part of its capabilities will evaporate.
What you're suggesting is that Israeli forces might be on the ground for quite a while still.
No, you can make most of what is needed to done after you clean it, and people will move to the north from the air.
Okay. Okay.
We are not speaking here. We are not speaking about infiltration of a team of 3 people that cannot be prevented from the air. But if you want to rebuild the Radwan capabilities in the south, or facilities as we are now exposing and as was described by General Ice, exposing and destroying. Just today we use 100 tons of TNT to blow a huge tunnel which was built. It's not the Palestinian tunnels. It's not a system of connecting everything to everything. No, it is about preparing undercover, underground positions, tunnels, and command and control headquarters to control the assault on the civilian border of Israel. That we are destroying now, and will not let it be built in the future.
Terrific. I do want to move on. Maybe just 10 more minutes, if you can stay. If you can't, please. Yeah. I wanted to ask a question.
For you, John, I'll stay another 10 minutes.
Okay, God bless you. General Amidror, we saw over the course of the last week several different American media outlets getting documents from the IDF that they have discovered, I guess in Gaza, maybe some in Lebanon, regarding the nature of the Axis of Resistance plan to what looks like invade Israel on multiple fronts and obviously try and destroy Israel or weaken it dramatically. it seemed to be driven primarily by Sinwar, trying to convince the Iranians and Hezbollah, but they all seem fully knowing of this overall big project. Is there anything that you learned from those documents that you can tell us to understand what was going on here?
I think it's a very important question. I wrote 6 years ago, 2018, a paper which tried to describe the Iranian strategy, and I used the word ring of fire. I think that we understood the philosophy of the Iranian strategy. We didn't understand that, I don't know when, two years ago, 3 years ago, they moved from philosophical abstract principles to very concrete plan how to crumble Israel by the proxies. And we didn't understand how concrete is it was very radical, but very practical translation of the strategy into practical actions. And what happened is that Sinwar, I don't know why, maybe in the future we will understand, I don't understand. Sinwar decided to do something against the whole idea of the Iranians. The Iranian idea was, we will beat the proxies, Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon. We will build independent Iranian capability in Syria. This is the whole Mabam operation that Israel did in the last 12 years. We will recruit the Houthis, which the Iranians build for our purposes in the Gulf, to be another element in the ring of fire, stopping any movement from the south towards Israel. The militias in Iraq and in Syria. We probably succeed in the future to recruit more Palestinians in the West Bank and to ignite the West Bank as well. And we will push whatever we can in Jordan, because Jordan is the soft belly of Israel. That was the idea. And they had the practical capabilities in Lebanon, in Gaza Strip, the beginning of some success in the West Bank, and the Houthis were more than ready to help. Sinwar break the idea. He did something, I don't know why, but he did it probably 6 to 12 months earlier than what the Iranians had in mind. And they were not prepared. They had been surprised by this unilateral movement of Sinwar. Sinwar probably had in mind the idea that they will join, because if something big like that is happening, that they will join. He totally failed in the West Bank, which was, from our point of view, a huge success. He half made a mistake with Hezbollah. Nasrallah decided to come in, but half gear. He was not ready to go to full war without preparations and against and after he lost the surprise element. The Houthis joined and did what they expected to. And they didn't understand how strong will be the reaction of the IDF in Gaza after such atrocities, and how well prepared is the IDF for war in Lebanon.
Yeah.
And these are the mistakes which had been done by Sinwar. He didn't, at the end, he didn't read Israel well.
Yeah, but it's frightening to think of if Sinwar hadn't jumped the gun, if they'd waited another year and been able to.
I don't want to think about it. It could be devastating. But he says something about the future, and
absolutely,
absolutely. I think that for that the most important lesson of the IDF should be, of Israel should be, to bring back the preemptive war into the bags of tools that we have.
Yeah. General Ayish and General Amidror, the final question, Iran, we're all waiting around trying to figure out.
We are waiting as well. We are waiting as well.
Can you shed any light or even just comment on what is the fact that the biggest Iranian proxy tried and failed to try and hit the Israeli head of state and perhaps try and kill him? Does that affect anything about you?
And the Iranians immediately reacted by saying, it's not us, it's Hezbollah.
Yeah, but the question is, does Israel believe that and accept it, or does it factor it into whatever it's planning on doing? That's one thing. Second thing is this is American intelligence breach, releasing some elements of what they understand about Israel's preparations for an attack. How much does that affect, or will it shape anything Israel does? And then the third thing, obviously, we've got at least one THAAD deployment, 100 American soldiers almost on the ground. I think we're hearing now about a second request and deployment that may be made. Comment on anything you want about the Iranian retaliation.
I'll take it from where General Amidror finished. The plan with the Iranians, together with Hamas, together with Hezbollah, was very clear. However, when we look today at the situation, a year after, we can see that Hamas was shattered almost totally. Hezbollah is about to be shattered as well. I'm not sure where we are going to stop. It's really up to the Israeli government to decide where they want to stop. And Iran, that thought that they can really orchestrate the whole thing around us, found themselves under a lot of pressure and an imminent attack that is about to hit them. And they don't know from where, when, and how. So basically, the situation is totally different. They have anticipated than the one that they have anticipated. And I'm sure that together with the deployment of the THAAD and the Aegis and all the other American assets in the region, the air and missile defense umbrella is going to be effective, at least as it was in the last two attacks. And the rest, we will have to be very patient and wait and to see what will come and what type of an answer and offensive it's going to be.
Great. Thank you, General Ayish. General Amidror, let me get your comments on anything you want to talk about that I mentioned. Or
yes, I will give you another secret, but only within us. I don't know who will be the pilots, but the airplanes will be American made.
Thank you. Thank you. And obviously some of the interceptors as well. I've been meaning to think, what does Amidror, the man so closely identified with Israel, never asked a single American soldier to put himself into harm's way in the defense of Israel, now suddenly might have a few hundred Americans deployed.
John, leave it to the MDP discussion. Leave it to the MDP discussion.
It's a long discussion and it's late. Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
It's good that the Americans send it. It's bad that we need it.
Indeed, which is another big discussion as well. How do we avoid this situation from developing in the future? Anyway, generals, thank you for indulging me for this extra time. Thank you for staying up so late during the holidays. You're celebrating still and with your families. And anyway, we'll talk to you soon, but appreciate it enormously. Appreciate our audience. As General Ayish said, we've got General Island retired, who's the brains behind this general's plan that has created such enormous controversy here in the United States. And I got to say, a lot of worry, probably a lot of misunderstandings for what his intent is. So we're hoping to clear up some of that tomorrow and ask some challenging questions of him. So please join us for that tomorrow, I believe at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time in Washington. Good night, generals. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Bye now.